Ladies and gentlemen, life is not about how many times you fall. It's about how many times you get back up. I want to tell you something. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is a part of success. If you haven't failed, you haven't tried hard enough. When I was young, I faced so many rejections. People laughed at me, called me crazy, said my ideas were impossible. I applied for so many jobs, and guess what? I was rejected every single time. Even at KFC, when 24 people applied, 23 got hired. I was the only one they said no to. I thought, why? What's wrong with me? But now I understand. Those rejections were preparing me for something bigger. I failed my university entrance exams. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Most people would give up after the first failure, but I kept going. Why? Because I believed in myself, even when no one else did. You see, when nobody believes in you, you have to believe in yourself. That's the only way. Then, when I started my first business, it was a disaster. Nobody wanted what I was selling. I gathered my friends in my small apartment and told them about this internet thing that would change the world. They looked at me like I was from another planet, but I didn't stop. I kept learning, kept trying, kept failing, until one day things started to work. Here's the truth. Success is not about being the smartest or the strongest. It's about being the most persistent. The people who make it are not the ones who never fail. They are the ones who never quit. I remember when we were building our company, there were days when we had no money, no customers, no support. Everyone said, this will never work. But we kept going. Why? Because we believed in the dream. If you have a dream, you must protect it. People will criticize you, doubt you, even mock you. But if you know in your heart that your vision is right, you must keep moving forward. Failure teaches you more than success ever will. When you fail, you learn what doesn't work. You learn humility, you learn to listen, you learn to adapt, and most importantly, you learn to appreciate success when it finally comes. Some of you here today might be feeling like giving up. Maybe you tried something and it didn't work. Maybe people told you that you're not good enough. Let me tell you this. You are good enough. You are capable. You are stronger than you think. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is not talent or luck. It's persistence. The world will test you. It will knock you down, but you must stand up, dust yourself off, and keep going. Every no brings you closer to a yes. Every failure brings you closer to success. So if you're afraid of failing, don't be. Embrace it. Learn from it. Let it make you better. Because one day, when you look back, you'll realize that your failures were not obstacles. They were stepping stones. And remember, today is hard, tomorrow will be worse, but the day after tomorrow will be sunshine. Most people give up tomorrow night. They don't make it to the sunshine. Don't be one of them. Keep going. Your time will come. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is the foundation upon which success is built. Let me tell you something profound that most people never understand until it's too late. Every great achievement in history was preceded by countless failures. The difference between those who ultimately succeed and those who don't isn't whether they fail, but how they respond when failure comes knocking at their door. When we look at children learning to walk, we see the perfect example of this truth in action. A baby falls down dozens, sometimes hundreds of times before taking those first steady steps. Does anyone scold the child for falling? Do we call the child a failure? Of course not. We understand this stumbling is a natural and necessary part of the learning process. Yet somewhere along the way, as we grow older, we develop this strange notion that failure is something to be ashamed of, something to avoid at all costs. This is completely backwards thinking. The most innovative companies in the world understand this principle deeply. They don't just tolerate failure, they expect it. They plan for it, they even celebrate it. Why? Because failure means you're pushing boundaries. It means you're trying something new rather than playing it safe. In the tech world, there's a saying, if you're not failing regularly, you're not innovating enough. This applies to every area of life, not just business. The greatest artists, scientists, athletes, and leaders all share one thing in common: they failed more times than most people even tried. Consider the process of scientific discovery. Thomas Edison famously said about inventing the light bulb, "I have not failed. I've just found 10 ways that won't work." This mindset transforms failure from an ending into a beginning. Each unsuccessful attempt isn't a defeat, it's valuable data, eliminating one more incorrect path and bringing you closer to the right solution. This is why in cutting-edge research labs, they don't call them failures, they call them learning iterations. In sports, we see this principle play out constantly. The best hitters in baseball fail about 70% of the time. The greatest basketball players miss more shots than they make. Champion boxers get knocked down repeatedly during training. What separates the elite performers isn't that they fail less, it's that they use each failure as fuel to improve. They study their mistakes with ruthless honesty, then go back and try again with better understanding. This is how ordinary people become extraordinary. The fear of failure paralyzes more dreams than actual failure ever could. So many brilliant ideas never see the light of day because someone was too afraid to try and fail. So many talented people never reach their potential because they played it safe to avoid embarrassment. This is tragic because the world needs your ideas, your voice, your unique contribution. But you have to be willing to fall flat on your face multiple times before you can stand tall in your success. Failure teaches us lessons that success never can. When you succeed right away, you rarely examine what really worked. But when you fail, you're forced to analyze every detail, to question your assumptions, to look for better approaches. This is why people who achieve success after repeated failures tend to be more grounded, more resilient, and more appreciative of their achievements. They've earned their wisdom the hard way. There's a psychological phenomenon called post-traumatic growth, where people actually become stronger after going through difficult experiences. This applies perfectly to failure. When you survive failure, when you pick yourself up and keep going, you develop mental muscles you never knew you had. Confidence built on overcoming adversity is far more durable than confidence that's never been tested. Each failure you overcome makes you more capable of handling bigger challenges in the future. The most successful people I know have what I call a failure resume, a list of all their biggest screw-ups, rejections, and embarrassments. They're proud of this list because it represents their courage to try, their willingness to take risks, and their determination to keep going. Your failures don't define you, how you respond to them does. Will you let them defeat you, or will you let them teach you? In our education systems and workplaces, we need to create environments where failure is seen as part of the process, rather than something to be punished. Imagine how much more innovative and creative we could be if people weren't constantly looking over their shoulders, afraid of making mistakes. Progress requires experimentation, and experimentation inevitably involves failure. The companies and societies that understand this will always outperform those that don't. The path to success is never a straight line. It's a zigzag of attempts and adjustments, of falling down and getting back up. The people who ultimately reach their goals aren't those who never fail, they're those who never quit. They understand that failure is simply the tuition you pay for success. Every great innovator, every industry leader, every world changer has paid this price. The question isn't whether you'll fail, you will, many times. The question is whether you'll let that stop you or whether you'll use it as stepping stones to something greater. This is why we must reframe our entire relationship with failure. Instead of dreading it, we should welcome it as a teacher. Instead of hiding our failures, we should share them to help others learn. Instead of seeing failure as the end, we should recognize it as a necessary part of every meaningful journey. When you internalize this truth, fear loses its power over you. You become free to take smart risks, to pursue bold ideas, to keep going when others give up. Some of the most valuable innovations in history came from accidents and failures. Penicillin, microwave ovens, pacemakers, even chocolate chip cookies, all discovered because someone was trying to do something else and failed. This is the creative potential hidden within every setback. When things don't go according to plan, that's often when the real magic happens. The key is to stay alert for these unexpected opportunities hidden within apparent failures. The people who change the world aren't special or lucky, they're just more persistent. They fail more because they try more. They understand that failure isn't fatal unless you let it be. Each attempt, whether successful or not, makes you wiser, stronger, and closer to your goal. This is why the most successful people often say their greatest advantage was their willingness to fail repeatedly, while others gave up after the first few tries. In the end, success isn't about avoiding failure, it's about collecting the right failures. Every failure that teaches you something new, that strengthens your resolve, that moves you forward, these are the failures worth having. The only true failure is giving up before you've given your dream a real chance. Everything else is just practice, preparation for the success that's coming if you have the courage to keep going. There comes a moment in every person's journey when the world seems to turn its back on you. When the voices around you, friends, family, even experts in your field, all say the same thing. It won't work. You can't do it. Give up. This is the critical crossroads where most dreams die. Not because they were impossible, but because their owners stopped believing when no one else did. But history remembers a different kind of person, the ones who kept the faith when faith seemed foolish, who believed in their vision when everyone called it delusion. The greatest ideas often look ridiculous at first. Imagine telling people 150 years ago that one day metal tubes would carry hundreds of people through the sky across oceans. They would have laughed you out of the room. The Wright brothers faced endless skepticism before proving human flight possible. The same pattern repeats through every break, through initial ridicule, then resistance, then eventual acceptance as obvious. The difference between visionaries and dreamers isn't talent or intelligence, it's the unshakable belief that keeps them working when the world says stop. Self-belief isn't about arrogance or ignoring reality. It's about having a quiet certainty that lives deeper than surface doubts. This kind of belief isn't born from blind faith, but from knowing yourself, your capabilities, your work ethic, your capacity to learn and adapt. When you've put in the hours, when you've studied every angle, when you've failed and gotten back up enough times, you develop a grounded confidence that no amount of external skepticism can shake. History's great innovators all faced their dark nights of the soul. The moments when funding dried up, when prototypes failed, when the 10th investor said no, what carried them through wasn't talent or connections, it was the ability to look in the mirror and say, I know what others can't see yet. This internal compass becomes your most valuable asset when external validation disappears. The people who change the world aren't necessarily smarter or more capable. They're just the ones who didn't quit when quitting made sense to everyone else. There's a psychological phenomenon where the more original your idea, the more resistance you'll face. This isn't coincidence, it's human nature. Our brains are wired to prefer familiar concepts. Truly innovative thinking triggers our natural skepticism. Understanding this helps you reframe rejection. It's not proof you're wrong, but evidence you might be onto something genuinely new. The more resistance you face, the more you should consider whether you're challenging outdated assumptions that need disrupting. The loneliness of being ahead of your time is real. When you see possibilities others don't, when you understand trends before they're obvious, you'll often find yourself standing alone. This isolation tests your belief like nothing else. But consider if your idea was already widely accepted. Would it still be an opportunity? Real breakthroughs happen precisely because most people can't see what's coming. Your ability to maintain conviction during this gap between your vision and others' understanding is what separates followers from leaders. Practical belief means preparing for the long haul. It's not enough to just feel confident. You need systems to sustain that confidence when challenges arise. Successful innovators develop habits that reinforce their belief. They document small wins to counter discouragement. They create physical reminders of their vision. They build networks of like-minded thinkers. They understand that belief isn't just an emotion, it's a discipline that needs daily reinforcement, especially when evidence seems lacking. The paradox of self-belief is that it grows strongest when tested. Like muscles under resistance, your conviction develops through overcoming doubt, both internal and external. Each time you choose to continue despite skepticism, you're not just moving your project forward, you're strengthening your ability to trust yourself in the face of uncertainty. This is how ordinary people develop the unshakable confidence we associate with great achievers through repeated acts of faith in their own judgment. Criticism can actually become fuel for your belief if you learn to process it correctly. Instead of taking skepticism personally or letting it create doubt, ask, what can I learn here? Is there valid feedback to incorporate? Does this resistance indicate where I need to communicate my vision better? The strongest beliefs aren't fragile, they're flexible enough to adapt while maintaining core conviction. This balance between openness to feedback and commitment to your vision is the hallmark of effective leadership. There's an important distinction between believing in yourself and refusing to face reality. True belief acknowledges challenges and adapts strategies while maintaining ultimate confidence in the end goal. Delusion ignores facts and pushes forward blindly. The difference lies in honest self-assessment. Are you adjusting your methods while keeping your vision, or ignoring warning signs that require course correction? The most successful people check their beliefs against reality constantly, but never abandon their core vision because of temporary setbacks. The world's most impactful creations, from revolutionary technologies to transformative social movements, all began as fragile ideas in someone's mind that others couldn't yet grasp. What allowed these ideas to become reality wasn't immediate widespread support, but the creator's ability to nurture that initial spark through years of doubt and difficulty. Your belief acts as the bridge between an idea's birth and its realization. The longer and more uncertain that bridge, the stronger your belief must be to cross it. This kind of belief isn't about positive thinking or wishful hoping. It's about the deep knowing that comes from total commitment to your vision. When you've invested enough time, research, effort, sacrifice, your belief stops being theoretical and becomes embodied. You no longer need to convince yourself because you've passed the point of no return. This is when belief becomes unstoppable, not because doubts disappear, but because you've decided there's no alternative but to prove yourself right. The people who change the world aren't those who waited for permission or validation. They're the ones who acted on their convictions before the evidence was obvious to others. Your ability to do the same to keep faith with your vision when conventional wisdom says otherwise will determine whether your ideas live in your imagination or in the world where they can make a difference. The future belongs not to the most talented or the most connected, but to those who believe strongly enough to keep going when belief seems unreasonable. Every great innovation, every industry disruption, every artistic masterpiece existed first as a belief in someone's mind that contradicted popular opinion. The electric light, the personal computer, the smartphone all were initially dismissed before becoming indispensable. The pattern is clear. What we take for granted today was once considered impossible. Your current ideas that face skepticism might follow the same path if you maintain the belief long enough to bridge the gap between vision and acceptance. This is why the ability to believe in yourself when no one else does may be the most important skill you'll ever develop. It's the force that turns imagination into reality, that transforms crazy ideas into world-changing innovations. When you cultivate this quality, when you can look at rejection and keep working, hear laughter and keep believing, face failure and keep trying, you tap into the same power that has driven human progress throughout history. The world needs people who can do this now more than ever. Will you be one of them? The world loves to celebrate natural talent. We marvel at child prodigies who play concertos at age 5, at athletes who seem to move with supernatural grace, at thinkers whose insights appear to come from some divine inspiration. But what we often miss is the quiet, unglamorous truth behind nearly every great achievement, the years of grinding persistence that made exceptional performance possible. Talent might open doors, but persistence keeps you moving forward when those doors slam shut. Luck might provide opportunities, but persistence creates its own luck through relentless effort. Consider any field of human endeavor: music, sports, science, business, and you'll find the same pattern repeating. The most accomplished individuals aren't necessarily the ones who started with the most natural advantages. They're the ones who outworked everyone else, who refused to quit when others walked away, who treated every setback as temporary rather than final. This is the great equalizer that levels the playing field: the willingness to keep going when others stop. Talent without persistence is like a sports car without fuel. It looks impressive, but won't take you far. The myth of overnight success is particularly dangerous because it hides the truth about how real achievement happens. We see the breakthrough moment, the product launch that goes viral, the athlete winning gold, the artist's sudden fame, but miss the decade of unseen effort that made it possible. This creates the illusion that success comes primarily from lucky breaks or innate gifts, when in reality it's more often the result of what happens when preparation meets persistence. The overnight success usually represents the 1,000th night of working while others slept. There's a reason why persistence consistently outperforms raw talent. Talent is static. You either have it or you don't. But persistence is dynamic. It grows stronger with use. Each challenge overcome, each obstacle faced, each failure survived makes your persistence muscle more powerful. This means that over time, the persistent person actually becomes more capable, while the merely talented person remains at their initial level unless they develop the discipline to improve. Natural abilities might give someone a head start, but persistence determines who finishes first. The psychology behind persistence reveals why it's such a powerful force. When we commit to continuing despite difficulties, several transformative things happen in our minds. First, we develop what psychologists call grit, the combination of passion and perseverance that predicts success better than IQ or talent. Second, We enter what researchers term the expertise cycle, the process where sustained effort leads to skill improvement, which makes the work more enjoyable, which fuels further effort. This creates an upward spiral where persistence becomes self-reinforcing. History provides countless examples of persistence trumping talent. Take the story of Thomas Edison, whose teachers considered him too stupid to learn anything. Or consider Albert Einstein, who was passed over for academic positions and worked in a patent office while developing his revolutionary theories. The annals of science, art, and innovation are filled with individuals who weren't the most naturally gifted in their fields, but who achieved greatness through sheer dogged determination. Their stories remind us that what matters isn't where you start, but how determined you are to keep moving forward. The relationship between persistence and skill development follows a predictable pattern that researchers call the plateau of latent potential. When we learn any new skill, we experience rapid initial improvement, followed by a long period where effort seems to produce no visible results. This is when most people give up. But those who persist through this plateau eventually experience a break. Through what looks like sudden mastery to outsiders is actually the culmination of all that unseen effort. Understanding this pattern helps explain why persistence pays off even when it doesn't immediately appear to. Persistence also changes how we perceive challenges. Where others see insurmountable obstacles, the persistent person sees problems to solve. This reframing transforms difficulties from reasons to quit into opportunities to grow. Each solved problem builds confidence and competence, creating a mindset where no challenge seems too great because you've overcome so many already. This explains why persistent people often appear lucky. They've developed the ability to turn setbacks into comebacks so consistently that obstacles become stepping stones rather than roadblocks. The business world provides clear evidence of persistence beating talent. Study any successful entrepreneur and you'll find a history of rejections, near failures, and pivots. What separated them from others who gave up wasn't superior intelligence or privileged connections, but simple refusal to quit. The same pattern appears in creative fields: famous authors with stacks of rejection letters, artists who kept painting despite indifference, musicians who played empty venues for years before finding an audience. In every case, persistence created the opportunity for talent to eventually shine. There's an important distinction between mindless persistence and strategic persistence. Simply repeating the same actions expecting different results isn't persistence, it's stubbornness. True persistence involves constant learning and adaptation while maintaining commitment to the ultimate goal. This means adjusting methods while keeping sight of the destination, being flexible in approach but unwavering in purpose. The most effective persistent people aren't rigid, they're resilient, able to bend without breaking as they navigate toward their objectives. The neuroscience behind persistence reveals why it's such a powerful success factor. Each time we push through difficulty, our brains actually rewire themselves. Neural pathways strengthen, making it easier to persist the next time. This creates what scientists call effort-driven rewards. The brain starts associating persistence with positive feelings. Over time, what began as difficult willpower becomes almost automatic as the brain develops persistence as a default response to challenges. This explains why persistent people seem to handle difficulties more easily. Their brains have literally trained themselves to keep going. Persistence also creates its own opportunities in ways that passive waiting never can. While sitting around hoping for luck, the persistent person is actively creating conditions for success. They are networking, learning, improving their craft, putting themselves in position to capitalize on opportunities when they arise. This explains the seeming paradox that persistent people appear luckier they are not. They've just done the work that makes them ready when chances appear. Luck favors the persistent because the persistent put themselves in luck's path repeatedly. The social aspect of persistence shouldn't be underestimated. When others observe someone continuing despite setbacks, it commands respect and often leads to unexpected support. People want to back those who demonstrate such commitment. This creates a snowball effect where persistence attracts resources, mentors appear, opportunities arise, teams form around the person who won't give up. In this way, persistence becomes self-reinforcing, generating its own momentum as others are drawn to the energy of someone so determined to succeed. Perhaps most importantly, persistence builds character in ways that talent alone cannot. The process of overcoming repeated obstacles develops resilience, patience, and emotional strength qualities that serve well beyond any single achievement. While talent might win early victories, it's persistence that builds the foundation for sustained success across a lifetime. This explains why many prodigies fade while steady performers endure. One relies on a fleeting gift, the other on cultivated determination that grows stronger with time. In competitive environments, persistence often becomes the deciding factor between equally talented individuals. When two people start with similar abilities, the one who outlasts the other usually wins. This explains why persistence matters even among the talented at high levels of achievement. Everyone is talented, so what separates winners is willingness to do what others won't. The extra hour of practice, the additional round of revisions, the willingness to try one more time, these small persistent acts accumulate into large advantages over time. The beautiful thing about persistence is that it's available to anyone. Unlike talent or luck, which depend on circumstances beyond our control, persistence is a choice anyone can make. It requires no special background, no privileged connections, no genetic gifts, just the decision to keep moving forward, no matter what. This makes it the most democratic of success factors, accessible to all who are willing to embrace its demands. In a world where advantages are unevenly distributed, persistence remains the great equalizer. The stories we remember, the achievements we celebrate, the breakthroughs that change our world, nearly all emerged from this same crucible of sustained effort. Behind every genius of moment lies years of unseen labor. Beneath every lucky break stretches a long road of preparation. What we call talent is often just persistence in disguised skills honed through endless repetition. What we attribute to luck is frequently persistence creating its own opportunities. When we understand this, we realize that the power to achieve great things lies not in waiting for advantages, but in cultivating the determination to outlast every obstacle. The persistent don't just hope for success, they will it into existence through sheer force of continued effort. Failure carries a bitter taste that most try to avoid at all costs. Yet hidden within every failure lies wisdom that success could never teach. The most valuable lessons in life don't come from getting things right, they emerge from getting things wrong, then having the courage to examine why. Failure strips away illusions, reveals true character, and provides the raw materials for genuine growth. Those who learn to embrace failure's teachings position themselves for success no classroom or textbook could ever provide. Consider how we naturally learn as children. A toddler doesn't master walking by succeeding on the first try. They learn through hundreds of falls, each tumble teaching subtle adjustments in balance and coordination. The same principle applies throughout life. Our most profound growth comes not from avoiding mistakes, but from making them, then extracting their lessons. Every failed business venture, every rejected proposal, every missed opportunity contains specific, actionable insights that smooth the path forward. The key lies in developing the humility to receive these lessons rather than defending our bruised ego. Failure teaches reality in ways success cannot. When we succeed, we rarely pause to analyze why, but failure forces brutal honesty: what assumptions were flawed, what skills were lacking, what preparation was insufficient. This unflinching confrontation with reality builds the foundation for future success. The most grounded, effective leaders are often those who have failed spectacularly and learned from the experience. Their confidence comes not from unbroken success, but from having survived failure and emerged wiser. The classroom of failure teaches resilience that no theoretical education can match. Reading about adversity is one thing; facing it personally transforms knowledge into lived wisdom. Each failure survived builds emotional calluses that make future challenges less intimidating. This explains why those who have overcome significant failures often display remarkable calm in crises. They've been tested before and know they can endure. The confidence born from overcoming failure runs deeper than the fleeting assurance of easy success. Failure reveals true priorities and separates superficial desires from genuine passions. When something matters deeply enough, failure doesn't extinguish motivation, it fuels greater determination. The projects we abandon after initial setbacks were likely never true priorities. But the pursuits we return to repeatedly after failures, the ideas we can't let go of despite obstacles, these point toward our authentic purposes. Failure acts as a filter, helping distinguish passing fancies from meaningful callings worth pursuing despite difficulties. Innovation thrives on intelligent failure. Every groundbreaking invention, every disruptive technology, every creative masterpiece emerged from an iterative process of trial and error. The light bulb, the airplane, the personal computer all required countless failures before working successfully. Organizations that punish failure stifle innovation, while those that analyze failures constructively accelerate progress. The most innovative cultures don't just tolerate failure, they systematically harvest its lessons, recognizing each misstep as data, bringing them closer to solutions. Failure builds empathy and emotional intelligence in ways success never could. Those who have experienced significant setbacks tend to develop greater compassion, patience, and understanding. They remember what it felt like to struggle, making them better mentors, leaders, and collaborators. This explains why many successful entrepreneurs actively seek team members with failure experience. They understand these individuals bring not just skills, but won wisdom about overcoming adversity. The most dangerous failures are those we avoid through excessive caution. Playing it safe to dodge potential failure often leads to the greatest failure of all unrealized potential. Many people reach the end of their lives not with memories of failures endured, but with regrets about chances not taken. Viewed this way, the risk isn't failing, it's failing to try. Every significant life achievement requires stepping beyond comfort zones where failure remains possible. Those who make peace with this truth liberate themselves to pursue goals others deem too risky. Failure teaches adaptability, perhaps the most crucial skill in our rapidly changing world. When initial approaches fail, we're forced to develop new strategies, acquire different skills, and consider alternative perspectives. This flexibility becomes increasingly valuable as traditional career paths disappear and industries transform. Those accustomed to learning from failure navigate change more gracefully than those whose early success left them unprepared for adversity. Financial failures often provide the most potent money management education. People who experience early financial success frequently develop dangerous habits and assumptions, but those who survive financial setbacks, failed businesses, investment losses, economic downturns tend to emerge with more prudent, sustainable approaches. They learn firsthand about cash flow management, risk assessment, and the difference between apparent prosperity and genuine financial health. Relationships grow stronger through repaired failures. The healthiest long-term relationships aren't those without conflict, but those where people learn to navigate disagreements constructively. Each successfully resolved conflict builds trust and deepens understanding. Similarly, in professional relationships, collaborations that survive early missteps often develop greater resilience than those beginning with seamless success. The ability to recover from relational failures creates bonds that superficial harmony cannot. Failure teaches the art of the pivot. Many legendary successes emerge from failed original plans, the post-it note from a failed adhesive, the pacemaker from a failed radar experiment, modern animation from a failed advertising business. The ability to recognize when to persevere versus when to redirect efforts is a skill best learned through experience with failure. Those most adept at productive pivoting are usually those most comfortable with initial failures. The fear of failure often does more damage than failure itself. This fear paralyzes potential, kills creativity, and traps people in unfulfilling safety. Yet when we examine our past failures honestly, we usually find they weren't nearly as catastrophic as we feared. Many of history's most admired figures experienced numerous failures before their defining successes. Their examples remind us that failure isn't fatal unless we allow it to be. It's simply part of the journey toward achievement. Failure teaches the importance of systems over goals. Those who experience repeated failures often discover that sustainable success comes not from fixating on outcomes, but from building reliable processes. Goals provide direction, but systems create progress. This shift in perspective from obsessing over results to focusing on daily practices frequently emerges from the lessons of failed attempts at quick fixes and shortcuts. The most successful people develop a sophisticated relationship with failure. They don't seek it recklessly, but they don't flee from it either. They analyze failures dispassionately, extracting lessons while avoiding emotional devastation. They understand that failure's teachings, properly absorbed, compound over time into wisdom no effortless success could provide. This mindset transforms failure from something to dread into something to leverage, perhaps the most significant shift anyone can make in their journey toward meaningful achievement. Ultimately, failure's greatest lesson may be this: what matters isn't whether you fall, but what you learn when you do. Every stumble contains information that, properly interpreted, makes the next step surer. Viewed this way, failure isn't the opposite of success, it's success in its larval stage, preparing to emerge stronger and wiser than before. Those who grasp this truth stop fearing failure and start mining it for the priceless lessons it alone can provide. In doing so, they unlock possibilities that perpetual safety could never offer.